Hello, epic riders. Today is an unboxing of the new 2025 Sur-Ron Ultra Bee, the one that's been highly anticipated, long awaited for, and finally it's here, and it's here for your viewing pleasure. Under this box is some of our accessories. Most importantly, your charger. We'll put that aside to the back. Inside of this box, sort of wedged in, is your handlebar. I'm just going to gently extract that. And again, get rid of the packaging. Bubble wrap, everybody's favorite plastic. Give it to your kids, they'll have lots of fun for hours. And, like I say, very meticulously wrapped. There you go, you're starting to see some of it. I'll take the seat cover off. Something that comes in all the packaging is a little bit of seat material. For some of you seamstresses out there, should you get a nice gash in your seat, you might use this stuff to patch your seat in the future. If not, you'll throw it away. Here's your fender. Again, nicely wrapped. A little bit of cellophane. And our fender is nicely emblazoned with that gold or bronze effect. Surron right on here. We'll put this aside for a moment. That'll be one of the things I will put on when I get to the front end. And I'm just going to continue taking the zip ties and bits and pieces off. You got some desiccant packages in here. And that sound you're hearing is just zip ties being removed. That was for the peg. Get rid of that. When you're at the front fork area, just be careful when you're cutting the zip ties off that you might not accidentally cut a brake line or a wire. So don't get too impatient. You want to be mindful enough that you don't make more work for yourself or have to buy some expensive part that you damaged. And again, keeping it nice and neat and clean. Here's our throttle. As you can see, and it's also one of the mode controls there. And on the other side, we got our handlebar. Whoops, and it's zip tied to the bike. There we are. This part always takes so long. Getting closer. So 2 more boxes we have. One that will be housing some bits and pieces like our handguards, unnecessary parts, a little bit of propaganda, a little booklet thing that you can keep your notes in. So opening up this, you got some reflectors that you can put on the fork. I never do. I don't think they're looking very pretty. 2 zip ties you're going to use for your number plate, I believe, in this case. Certainly on the Light Bee X's you do. In here, what do we got? They did give you a big fat Allen key. Save that. These usually don't come in the multi-key set. Here's our hand guards. We're going to put on pretty much the last thing we install. Some of you may not even use the hand guards. You may just want to keep the front end looking simple and clean. Or we're going to put all the accessories that come with this bike on today. Give you the full show. One there and one there. And what else we got in the box? Oh yeah, a little bit of a chain guard. That's going to go on my side over here, just where the chain is. Keep that handy over here. And like I said, in this box you get kind of a little Sur-Ron booklet. There's really nothing in there yet. I guess you can store things if you wanted to, or just maybe use it for school or other purposes. It's kind of a neat thing they give you. And there's our zip ties once again. All right, we're getting close. This large box, it looks like a pizza showed up, is going to be our front wheel. There's your wheel. So the first thing I like to do is get the handlebar set on. So I'm just going to undo these stem clamp bolts. First I'm just going to crack them loose. It's a 6mm Allen key. So I'm going to spin these guys off. You might kind of hear that glitchy squeaky sound. One, they come out really nice and neat, so the threads are really well installed. And depending on what school of thought you come from, many people have two different views on it. And putting these back on, one, somebody might use Loctite. If you're gonna use blue, don't go crazy. Or you can just use some lithium grease. In this case, I'm just gonna pump a little dab. I believe never to install a bolt into a dry hole. So this will allow you to torque it a little bit smoother and tighter and get a better torque rating. And as well, in the future, should any corrosion happen, these things will come back off again. Getting your handlebars on. First step. Actually, there's a mini step in between. You're going to see me just moving this wire free past the number plate. There's our front brake. I'm going to put this onto one side. We got our rear brake. That'll go on after the bars are mounted. And here's our controls. One thing when you go to put these controls on the bar, you're going to notice a little tiny screw right in here that's not going to allow you to get the bar to penetrate. So you're going to get yourself an Allen key. I think this is a 2mm. I'm just going to spin that screw back so that it's away or not blocking the passage of the handlebar. You don't have to take the screw completely out. The throttle doesn't require that. You may back off the screws a tiny bit if the shell of this is too tight, but right now it's loose. First thing I'm going to do is put on this control. And for style points, there's also a little rubber clip here. I'm going to take this off for the moment so I can manipulate the wires better. And I like my wires to look nice and neat and straight. So I'm just going to pull this up. I'm just going to pull along here so that the wire is doesn't have a twist in it. And you've got a ready button in the front, the rocker button on the top for on and off, and of course your speed or power selector. So the ready button is going to be forward, and it's going to read kind of upside down from the rider's perspective. So that goes on first. Whoops, wait a minute, back up. First thing, front brake lever. Let's try that. And again, you can see there's enough cable here, and so you do this first. If you mount the bar on first, you're gonna have to undo your bar and do what I'm doing right now. So watch this video carefully, it'll save you quite a few minutes. That way you can get to your beer when you're done faster. All right, control lever on, throttle. Again, I do the same thing, grab the cable. The cable goes towards the bottom. And now I can perch the bar into its position. I'm gonna leave those loose right now, and I'll be able to fine tune that later. So there's some of these used to have an up or down on them. They no longer have it, so it doesn't matter which way you put them on. You can't do it wrong anymore. And centering of the bar, it's very difficult to see, but there's 3 little points on each side of the bar, like 3 little sort of markings. So you can use those as a reference for centering the bar. So where did my Allen key go? There it is. 6mm again. Now I'm going to tighten this stuff up. So first I'm just going to position the bar You've got 3 points. I noticed that if you just make the second line, just second line of those little markers, if you want to call it, reference points, move those to the outside part of the stem clamp. I'm just going to wind these down. They're still going to be loose. One thing I want is I want the spacing on each side of these to be equidistant. Don't clamp one side all the way and then use the other side to do all the work. You want this thing to go down flat. Handlebar position, that's a personal thing. So right now these are really far forward, kind of wheelie style. I can roll them back toboggan style, but I'm going to start with a neutral position where it's kind of just a neutral back sweep, flat tops on the bars. However you like it, that's up to you later. But this is how they go out the door from this place. Now I'm going to take a quick look to make sure those 2 reference points for the centeredness of the bar are in the same position. I like it. And now I can just snug this down. And you can see by the effort that I'm going and what I'm doing, I'm sort of doing this in a crosshatch pattern. These are independent, so it's not like the old BMX stems or the 4-piece stem where you had to make sure it was going down flat so you didn't torque it. So these are pretty close to tight now. And you'll see by the effort that I'm putting in. So now I'm going to go to the final sort of tightening of it. I'll put this in a view that can be seen. So you're going to see that I'm not reefing the hell out of this. Just a nice little pull. You don't need to use an impact driver or anything like that. And there you go. Bars are secure. Stage 1. Step 2. Brake levers. You can do that in a different order, but seeing as it's part of the finished setup of the bike. And again, I like to follow the rule. This one has an up position on the clamp, so you might as well put it with the up facing up. Now you'll know the front brake lever was already attached and everything. Because I took these bolts out, I'm going to follow my same old rules, put a little drop of grease in there. If I wanted to be really hardcore, I'd take those clamps off and replace the grease in there, or not replace it, but put some in. And this cable, I'm going to tuck it again behind the number plate so it has a nice flow. Position that onto the bar. Look for the up, make sure the up is up. And spin these bolts in. These guys, I believe, are using a 5mm Allen key. I'm just going to spin those down. Same thing on all clamps. You want the same distance on both sides of the clamp as it comes down. Brake lever position is also somewhat personal. Again, I like to keep it neutral. You'll see I'm mounting the bike right now. And usually, if I'm sitting on a bike, I'll raise my hand, lower my hand, and the brake lever should be just below the fingertips. And because the bike is on a different angle, I know when I'm done, this is not going to be the same body position. I am going to drop it a bit more. For you stand-up riders, you may tuck it even further below so that when you're standing, the lever is sort of at this reach. You can see from this camera angle here that my hand would work in this position. But now that I'm here, it's this position. Some people do this. This is very unnatural. I don't know how you'd like that. If you do, you're in a league of your own. So I'm going to just do what I do as a neutral position. My first observation was that when I squeeze the lever, it was getting in contact with this control panel here. And if that's the case, if the lever feels like it locks up on you, then you're just going to back this screw off, rotate this, make sure you got clearance. There's a little space there, and snug this down. This bolt doesn't have to have a lot of torque. You'll see 2-finger effort, right? This is just to keep this from spinning. And it's not a bad idea if it does spin someday. Let's say one day you crash your bike and something hits it. Instead of it snapping off, it may rotate on your bar. It gives you another chance to break it off another time. All right, so brake lever, I want that sort of bottomed out into the bar. I'm just going to snug down the little shell that tightens it onto the bar. I like to call this thing the clam shell. I don't know why. That's my name for it. I'm sticking to it. And I just gently snug it in. I might change this. The control switch, again, I'm going to match it up with the same position I had the other one in terms of its angles. But again, the brake lever is going to dictate the final position of that. So just snug, you know, you can see the effort that I'm doing. And now the brake lever, I'm going to match it up to that side. I've seen riders have them different on both sides. Something to do with the throttle, sort of releasing the throttle and grabbing it. You know, some of you very experienced riders, you have your own way of doing things. Stick to what works best for you. So now the lever is going to dictate my position of all of these controls. I can squeeze this with no interference to the box on top or the control switch. That's good. I got clearance. Everything's good. Throttle flicks nicely. Done. Here's one little area that's going to take some patience, and that is putting your brake sensors in position. So when you're doing that, you're going to use a Phillips screwdriver. Underneath the lever is a Phillips screw. I'm going to remove this little tiny Phillips screw. And like I say, have patience on this one. This might take a couple of efforts to put in. I often think I got it, and for whatever reason, it doesn't behave. So I'm going to bring a stool over. So here's your brake sensor. And it fits forward. There's a little button. That's your brake sensor switch. I'm going to open the lever or squeeze the lever a bit. Position this in its place where the hole is where it's at. This almost takes like 3 hands to do. So I'm holding it with my thumb, with the brake lever sort of holding the button down. I hope that I can get this in the hole first time without dropping this piece on the floor. And she's in. If you install this and it's crooked, you might set it up in a position where the button is always open, and when you go to finally turn the bike on, the wheel's not going to turn because it thinks the brakes are on. So you should hear, again, when you squeeze the lever, if I'm quiet, hear that click? You'll hear it better when I go to this side. So if you're hearing that click, then you know that the button is functioning. Now it's in the right spot. Now listen. You want to hear that sound. So now you know your brake sensors are on correctly. Brake sensors work. You got some bolts here, 10mm bolts. These are what hold on the fender. And again, before I install this, I'm going to be wet fitting these bolts with a little bit of grease. And you already heard me say you can use Loctite. I recommend blue. Some people are Loctite fans and they don't want nothing without it. There's a really handy tool. Thank you very much, Ian. Love having this tool handy. As a bike mechanic, bicycle mechanic, which I do a lot. These 3 tools, this one, and what did I do with my 3-way other one? These guys. You got these at hand at any point. You can do just about everything you need to do for any bike. So, back to the bolts. Little tiny bit of grease, and we're talking a little bit. We're not trying to lubricate a wheel bearing here. We just want to put just a bit of that stuff in there, keep the threads wet. And now we're ready for the fender. So on the very first time I built one of these Sur-Rons, because of the double washers, I was unsure what to do with them. And I made the decision to put the flat washer on the top and the top hat's on the bottom. And we got a comment saying it's the other way. Well, I watched the video and I didn't try to diffuse this point, but I saw another video from Sur-Ron and they did it the way I did it. And if you do it the other way, it doesn't really matter. But the top hat washer, the reason why they got that little flat spot is so you don't crush the fender as you're installing it. So that's going to be the washer that goes below. I'm going to put the flat ones on the top. You saw me put a bit of grease on that. I put the grease on so that they'd stay in place. And just a dab of grease, just to act kind of like a temporary, I won't say glue, but something sticky to keep them in place. Nothing to do with lubricant. Now, I'm going to pre-dress all these bolts with the top hat, the narrow part at the top, and the flat to the bottom. And I'm just going to do this all in advance so I don't have to spend my time setting up each one of these screws one at a time as I reach for them. These guys go on really easy. The threads are beautiful. So I put the bolt through the hole, raise it up to the fork, and if I make this look easy, it's because I've done it 1,000 times, but it's not that hard to find the hole and pilot it to the bottom of the fork crown to thread it in. And usually once you get 2 of them in, that sort of aligns everything so that the next 2 will line up very well. And I like to put the fender on first, because when you get the tire on, you don't have a lot of room under here to work anymore. So I know you want to make this a motorcycle and get going on the trail as fast as possible, but there's another thing that's going to slow you down. You got to charge the battery fully before you get on this thing. So do that for the health of the battery, to give the battery the training to know where 100% is, as opposed to impatiently running it right away from some other spot, and maybe not even topping it up the next time because you got 3 people at the cottage or wherever you're at, and they all want to have a run at her. Well, take your time. Patience is a virtue, and it's worth waiting for. You've got one of the finest bikes out there, and there are many fine bikes coming very soon. So treat your bike right and it'll treat you right. And on these bolts, they're pretty heavy duty bolts, or pretty thick bolts, so I'm putting quite a bit of force into this. You'll see that I'm kind of, if you look at my arms flexing, you'll see what little muscles I got are actually doing some work here today. All right, fender's in place. Handlebars are in place. And I'm about to make the next decision, which I'm going to need a hand with when that comes up. I'm going to loosen off this fork 2 ways. One, there's pinch bolts on the fork axle, so I'm just going to spin them loose. I don't need to take them out. I just want them loose because I'm going to be sliding this axle out in a few moments. You'll see the factory didn't put any heavy force on them. Didn't require it, but that'll change when we're finished this bike. We're going to make sure these are very secure. This is a big safety issue. All right. I'm not a big fan of power tools, but this is where this one comes in handy, because these are really long screws that they put in here. It's going to be a bit noisy. So there's an 8mm socket on a drill, impact drill, whatever you want. Put her in reverse, put it on the head of the bolt, and here's where the noise begins. Look at that, a proper deck screw. We got 4 of these guys, let's get them all out. Make sure you have a proper fitting wrench. If you round off these nuts, you're in for a lot of grief trying to get this block out of here, because you're going to use a crowbar and a hammer, and things are going to get really ugly. All right, at this moment, the fork is no longer attached to the bottom of the crate. I'm going to put my stuff away, and this is where I need some help. So what I normally do is I'll have a motorcycle stand, a good sturdy one, a milk crate, a block of wood, something square, of course, be very important. We're gonna lift this so the bash guard's on top of that. First thing I'm gonna make sure is the fork is broken away from the bottom of the box, which it is. And then I'm gonna undo these 2 straps that are compressing the rear end. Hold the bike steady, maybe even have a friend with you. But right now, I've done this so many times, I can trust myself. 1 strap out. You'll see the bike wants to pull. Next strap out. Now the bike is floating level. And what I need is somebody to hold the front end steady while I lift the rear wheel out. So first I'm going to lift it out of the crack of the hole and just get it loose. And now I'm going to get the bash guard right on top of here with Ian's assistance as I guide it over. I need it to be sent. There we go, we're in the middle. Nice, thanks Ian. And as you can see, that was a little bit difficult, and it is. It's a 187-pound bike. But there we go. I think maybe we might want to change focus a bit, or want to slide it back with me. Okay, be careful. That's your focal length. Okay. All right, a little bit out of breath there. So, starting to look like a bike now. So, we want to get the axle out. They gave you that big fat 8mm. I'm just going to use my favorite 8mm. Break that loose. Spin the axle out. The wooden block, or the axle goes through that wooden block. I'm going to put the bolt on the floor. Slide the axle out. There's wheel spacer for both sides. They are the same length, so if you mix them up, doesn't matter what side you put them on, but I like to put them with the little flange side going into the rubber seal, so the rubber seal sort of retains these things so they don't fall out easily. And behind the brake here, or in the brake, you got a little brake puck. That's there, so when the brake lever is accidentally squeezed, it won't pump the pads close together. And if the pads are pumped together, then it's very hard. It's very hard to put the brake or the disc or rotor into there. If you don't have one of these brake spreaders, you can use a very wide flat head screwdriver. Again, you don't have to gouge the crap out of this stuff. I'm going to put the spreader in, and I'm just going to move these pads, put a bigger gap in there. So I'm just putting the spreader between the pads and just levering into it. That'll make your first grab on the brake feel really soft because it's going to pump everything back up to set the front end up again. And my axle, I do this. Hey, you guys can put it in the comments whether this is necessary even, but you'll see two flat points where the bearings run. I like to put just a tiny bit of grease just on that point, and again on the other one. I didn't do the whole shaft because there's a section of the shaft that the grease doesn't touch anything, but I do like to have any metal to metal contact. Oh, and then the other thing is, again, the Loctite or this grease. I put a little bit in the threads here. And I would actually say for those who are really hard riders or have had a front end come loose, Loctite would definitely be a surety, because this thing, you never want to have it come undone on a ride. So check that all the time, anytime you're worried. Allen keys are easy to carry. Just checking these and making sure the front wheel is safe is always a good idea. Safety first. All right, now I'm ready to roll the wheel in. So the spacers, again, the flange, I'm just going to roll that inside of the bearing, the rubber lip seal on one side, then on the other. I'm going to set the wheel up, going towards the brake. The rotor is actually in between the brake pads right now, and this is where I'm going to raise the wheel up. Now the axle's got a fat side on one side and a skinny side on the other side. The skinny side goes into here, and the fat side goes in the non-brake side. So I'm going to lift the wheel up with the rotor still in the brake caliper, slide that over. That little fat shoulder might give you a bit of a trick. Oh boy, this was so easy. Doesn't always come out this easy. Sometimes you gotta sort of lift the fork up. One side of the fork is sprung, the other side is just the hydraulic damping. So the damp side is the one that's easy to adjust. The spring side, yeah, good luck moving that up and down without a bunch of people helping you. And first thing I'll do now that I got that in place, I put that retaining bolt on. I'm gonna spin this around a bunch of times. And this one is a heavy thread, and it's a large Allen key, so you can put pretty much as much force as you think you can apply to it. Don't put a pry bar on the end of there, but watch how I do this. I just sort of knock it down. Sometimes you hear a squeak. I like to hear that squeak. That means it's at the end of its torque, but that's good. Now she's secure, but not totally secure yet, We got the pinch bolts, and these are vitally important to make sure they are properly tightened, or else the day will get really fun. I don't mean that literally, but if you don't do these up, make sure the cameras are always rolling, because when the front wheel comes off, it makes for an exciting video. So you do these bolts one at a time, left and right. And again, you'll see the effort that I'm putting into it. They do need to be snug, but again, you don't want to tighten them so much that you stripped or pulled out the threads from the other side. You are threading a stainless steel bolt into aluminum. You can hear that click there, right? I'm getting close to where it wants to be, but there's two bolts, so the other one hasn't done any work yet. There's that click. Go back to the first bolt. All right, and I'm going by resistance, so it's a feel thing. If you need a torque wrench and you want to go by torque settings, use the torque values based on the size of bolt and of course a proper torque wrench. And if you're not sure what you're doing, then definitely get a torque wrench. It is common for people to over tighten almost every single bolt and strip it or turn it to a point where it can never be undone again. So a good tech tip. Now I'm just going to do the other side. Did it matter which side I started on? Nah, not that I have this all sandwiched together. So I'm going to do the same effort on the non-brake side and clamp down the axle into this. So my biggest worry on anybody who rides one of these bikes, or even when I send them out the door, is to make sure this is always tight. It's kind of like working in a bike store and making sure the handlebar stem is not just tight but pointed forward and not going to come undone. Should the front end of the handlebars or the front end of your bike come loose, it's not going to go where you're hoping to go with it. All right, I like that. It's good. Will that go in the box? Nah. All right, so we got the front end done. Fender on. Brake is rotating. Give it a little squeeze. I'm pumping it actually, and there we go, it's fully loaded. And these are a floating brake. So if you hear a bit of scrub there, this is normal. You got a lot of horsepower pushing this thing forward, so that tiny bit of drag is not going to be an issue, and it's not going to turn your rotor red hot to the point where it's going to melt off the bike. Rear brake is already factory set. We're good with that. Chain is already tensioned. We're good with that. Speaking of chain, that reminded me of the little chain guard. This piece here. So there's two bolts on the chain stay, and they have a sort of a stage to them as well, kind of like the fenders. So when you tighten these to the bottom, it's not tightening on the fender, it's tightening to the metal and maintaining or holding the fender in position such that it, one, doesn't get crushed, and two, doesn't fall off. Did I call it a fender? It's a chain guard. And again, these bolts, I don't really think of them as much of an important thing. So whatever you do, nothing, even if you don't even want to have this on, maybe you like the look of the chain showing, it looks a bit more raw. Everyone's got their personal style. But the bike came with it, and you're gonna get it with your bike. Two things you might be watching as I'm doing this is you're gonna see those two eye bolts that were right here. They might come in handy in the future for transporting your bike on carrier or rack, or, you know, in the bed of your pickup truck. So take them off. You don't want them falling off on the trail and being wasted. They might have a second purpose in life somewhere, depending on what your needs are and how you like to load your bike. So I'm just going to prime this bolt in. There's an oval-shaped hole on one side and a round hole on the other. So I usually just snug down the round hole first, because the oval-shaped hole gives you a little bit of play just in case these things weren't welded on right or the thread wasn't tapped in right. So the front hole is the round one, and you can see that just by looking at it. So now I got them bottomed out, and this thing, you can torque it until the bolt stops or hits bottom. It's not squeezing it's not tightening against the plastic, i.e. the plastic isn't acting as a washer. It's being held very carefully by a prescribed distance that's provided by the bolt to make sure it just stays firmly in place and doesn't rattle and make noise. Rear end is done. Toys are on. I'm gonna get rid of these little eye bolt thingamajiggers. And quite literally at this point, we're almost done. The rest of it's just playing with the front end, charging it up, maybe hooking up the battery cable. And also I'm gonna put the little covers that came with the wires back on. There's one little rubber piece, you probably remember me taking it off in the beginning. That was on this side. So I'm just gonna group these wires together, sort of neatly space them or tuck them into the back. And because there is 2 wires, the sensor wire, I'm not gonna get that involved in it. Just want to keep these wires bundled up together. They didn't give you a rubber one for the other side because there's only 1 wire. So it's not like it's missing, it just isn't necessary. And again, that wire, you can sort of tuck that down in behind the number plate, keeping it neat. I've seen people put a zip tie over here. If you want, go ahead. It won't hurt anything. I find zip ties look ugly, even if they're used smartly. They're kind of a ghetto replacement mechanism. What more can I say? I'm not going to take that off. There's a little plastic film there. Same on this side. All right, it's a bike. So we're going to get it off this stand now. Kick the stool out. On the ground, on the stand. Now it's a bike. So our keys are attached to this cable. I'm going to cut that away. And before I put that cable on, there's a little clip here. Again, first impressions are everything. I'm just going to make these 2 wires follow the same arc because I like the way it looks. Nice. So the keys are only, well, not only, they do 2 things. One, they start it, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up the seat. Just like the last Sur-Ron or the others, seat slides backwards. I'm going to rest that over here. Oh, I've almost forgot about our most wonderful brake lever covers. We'll do that afterward. So here's our little seat cover that was on the bike. A little bit more of that vinyl material. And a nice handy thing, you can put your charger down inside of the seat cavity here to carry it with you as you ride. Opening the seat, we got 2 levers. I'm going to push down. It's a secondary lever that you'll push on. It even gives you numbers on them. Tell you what order to do it in. This goes up. Hydraulic hood holder. Some cars don't even come with those. This is a nice touch. Battery. There's no circuit breaker on here. I'm just going to hook up power cable. Done. There's your charging port right there. It's the first thing you're going to do once we're finished here. You can also charge the battery without hooking it up. You can lift it right out of there, put it on the floor, put it in the garage, put it on your kitchen table and admire it while it charges over a beer. Okay, here we are. I'm already seeing something like, looks like 70%. That's not bad. You close down the lid. I'm gonna put a little bit of force on it, tuck one of those holders in, second one, tuck it down. She's good. Let's see what happens when we give it power. Uh-oh, I left the key somewhere. There it is. I'm gonna turn it on. On she goes. We got 65% charge, which is pretty much standard, 62 to 67% I see on these guys. Everything looks normal. No tripped circuits or anything. We're good. I'm going to put our seat back on because we can. Oh, here's another thing. Underneath this thing, there's another little Sur-Ron Easter egg. I can't even remember what's in here. I've just left them in the pack all the time. Oh, look at that. That's kind of neat. So you get a couple of socket wrenches, a spoke tool. Okay, these are for experts only, but that's nice. Spoke tool. And then a whole bunch of little bits to go into this holder. So it's like a mini tool kit. I like the spoke tool because you know it's going to fit this bike. You don't have to go shopping around and taking a guess as what size is my spoke, because they don't really have a standard that's easy to know. And anybody who knows the standard, send us a message on that, because I'm still learning my way around this, and I consider myself a master wheel builder on bicycles. A wheel's a wheel to me, but dimensions and size and fittings is very important. I'm just going to put this little thing back in. It's kind of nice that they provided all of this. Done. Seat back on. So you got a little passage that goes into here, fits on this knob. You sort of slide that into place. You give it a little bump forward, bang down, seat's attached. And la pièce de résistance de finalité de l'assemblage de cette motor vélo is putting on the handguards. If you're wondering which way they go, you'll know when you put them on upside down. So you put them on with this little black portion on the down position. If you put them on with the black portion up, you'll find that when you reach for the brake lever, your fingertips are touching this thing. So that's how you know it's wrong. And because these bolts aren't a life-saving bolt, as much as I go by the rule, don't dry fit any bolts, I guess it's because I really don't care too much for these things. So we're just going to thread that bolt in, snug it down. Again, remember, this isn't a top hat or shouldered bolt, so this handguard is kind of acting as the washer. So you'll see by the effort that I'm putting in, look at that, that's all the torque you need to do, right? So you'll feel it slow down, give it a bit more. I could probably give it a half turn more, but then at this point I'm squeezing and compressing the plastic, and I don't want to do that. Now the other side.
3, 2, 1.
Spin the bolt out. Grease it or Loctite if you like to. In this case, I'm going to bypass that. Because if these things fall off, your life is not in danger. All right. So some of the new features on the new Ultra Bee, you've got a much higher powered motor. It's about 20% more peak power than before. Top speed's pretty much the same. And all your controls, you still have your reverse, and you have regenerative braking at I think 3 different levels on here. And there's a bunch of other things that I'm not fully up to date on, but a lot of fantastic features on a really solid bike. This bike was bomb-proof when they made it the first time. Still going to be bomb-proof now, and has some features that everyone's going to love. So that's it. The 2025 Ultra Bee in black with the sticker kit that comes with it and everything you see here. This is it. Get yours soon. They're running out really fast.